It's okay not to obsess over tragedies halfway around the world stemming from a generations-long territorial dispute between two different ethnic groups, and instead focus on problems and challenges in your own life and those of your own family, friends, and community. But in the blink of an eye, virtually every Republican in Congress and the brand-name social media personalities and talk show hosts who oppose U.S. funding and involvement in the Russia-Ukraine war are now gung-ho about us joining in on this one. Of course, Black Lives Matter, among many other Marxists, are celebrating the Hamas terrorist attack against people in Israel. What many are posting isn't supporting Palestinian independence or denouncing the innocent civilians who have been killed in Gaza over the years by Israeli forces. Many are straight up supporting terrorism and mass murder. If those on your side commit such atrocities, and that's what they did. It was absolutely horrific beyond words. If you've seen the video, then there's no disputing this. You denounce them and work to expel them from your movement. You don't celebrate their evil and further inflame the situation. And yes, many supporters of Israel, including many brand-name conservatives on Twitter and the conservative Inc. talk show hosts and pundits, are carelessly lumping in all Palestinians into one group and are calling for their genocide as if they're all part of Hamas. The whole situation is a mess and has been a mess for generations, which is why I focus on America and our problems, not some long-standing land dispute between two different ethnic groups halfway around the world. Jeremy Boring, the CEO of the Daily Wire, is basically saying that he wants people to accept the genocide of thousands or what could be tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians in order to destroy Hamas. Tweeting, "The means of defeating them are abhorrent," he says, meaning countless innocent men, women, and children will be killed as collateral damage. But he wants us to change the paradigm, meaning throwing the baby out with the bathwater and either lumping all Palestinians in with the terrorist group Hamas as if they're all one and the same, or blaming them for getting killed in Israelis' counterattack because they didn't flee Gaza. This is the new neocon Republican establishment talking point. People always deny, downplay, or justify atrocities their side commits. And the ADL doesn't want to denounce Black Lives Matter groups, numerous chapters of which across the country on their social media accounts are endorsing and celebrating the Hamas terrorists, because Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization themselves. The ADL tweeted, "White supremacist leaders are openly celebrating Hamas's attack on Israel, cheering explicit depictions of violence against Israelis, promoting brutality against Jews worldwide." But there's no mention of this horrendous meme posted by Black Lives Matter or other statements supporting Hamas by the radical leftists. The Southern Poverty Law Center actually removed black supremacist groups from their list of extremist groups a few years ago to support Black Lives Matter. The Biden administration also retracted a report that the FBI had posted about the dangers of black identity extremists. Imagine being a liberal Jew. Those are the non-religious ones as opposed to the Orthodox Jews who believe in God and are conservative. The secular Jews, the non-religious ones, the ginos, the Jews in name only like George Soros. Imagine how they feel seeing the groups that they supported all these years that we've been warning about, praising Hamas for what they did to Jews in Israel. But perhaps the dumbest take of all comes from Mike Pence, who is so delusional that he thinks he might actually win the 2024 election and become president. He's blaming, you guessed it, Donald Trump.
I also believe this is what happens when we have leading voices like Donald Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Ron DeSantis signaling retreat from America's role as leader of the free world. Look,
the leading theory is that Israel and Saudi Arabia were about to sign a peace deal. So Iran is using Hamas and the Palestinians as pawns in their game to cause Israel to respond in a manner that will cause massive collateral damage. People like Ben Shapiro are priming their audiences to accept as Hamas's fault because the civilians didn't evacuate before Israel bombs Gaza into the Stone Age.
Just merely mentioning Israel or questioning in any way the effectiveness or humanity of Israel's policies is not the same thing as being pro-Hamas.
So you're against murdered children?
Free Gaza! Free Palestine!
Jon Stewart is Jewish, so it's very rare for a Jewish person to criticize Israeli policies when it comes to their treatment of Palestinians, because Jews are very ethnocentric. They usually stick together. Here's another clip, by the way, from him back in 2014, which is just as true today as it was almost a decade ago.
At that point, what are Gazans supposed to do?
The Israeli military telephoned the neighbor to warn them to evacuate, but they only had 3 minutes.
Evacuate to where? Have you seen Gaza? It's this. Israel blocked this border. Egypt blocked this border. What, are they supposed to swim for it?
Like I said, this whole thing is a mess. It's been a mess for 2,000 years. So forgive me if I don't cover this on a regular basis. If America gets dragged into it further, I may cover it. But we have our own problems in our own backyard to deal with. But sadly, this may become our problem because America has let in who knows how many thousands of Hamas supporters over the years because of our liberal immigration policy and refugee programs. People like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib who wouldn't even condemn Hamas for what they had done. Not to mention, who knows, if any sleeper cells snuck through the southern border over the last couple years. They probably didn't bother because, well, we've opened the door for them to just walk right in. Here's Dearborn, Michigan last night, an American town that has basically been completely taken over by Muslim refugees let into the United States. So sadly, aside from the neocons beating the war drums louder than they ever have to get the United States involved in a war in a foreign country, this mess might come to us on our shore even if we stay out of it over in Israel. And many Christians say, this is different than the Russia-Ukraine war they've been adamant about not funding and not getting America involved in because Jews are God's chosen people, they say. No, Christians are God's chosen people of any race or ethnicity, not people who just so happen to have a certain line of descendants in their family tree. I think actually more than half of the Jews in Israel aren't even religious at all. They just identify as Jews ethnically. And in the Bible, in Romans chapter 9, verse 6 through 8, it says, "For not all who are descended from Israel are Israel. It is not the children by physical descent who are God's children, but it is the children of the promise who are regarded as Abraham's offspring." Galatians 3, verse 29 also makes it clear that if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. And your personal salvation and relationship with Christ have nothing to do with two different ethnic groups, Jews and Palestinians, fighting over a plot of land halfway around the world in Israel, or which one occupies any of the disputed territories. The Bible calls Christians a royal priesthood and a holy nation in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. And all of this is detailed in my new book, which is coming out in about a month. It's a surprise release, so you can't pre-order it, but just keep your eyes open because it's coming probably within the next 30 days, give or take a week, and it's going to seem like a normal book on the surface, and you might think you're familiar with the material, but it's not a normal book. And once you start reading it, you will see it goes very deep down the rabbit hole. So stay tuned because it's coming soon.